Here we have a Python backend running on my computer. Let me actually run it. Yeah, it's running. I'm going to move on my phone, where I have this simple web page. Zoom it a little. So, when I press Get Users button, it fetches the users. These users. I have an option to fetch a specific one. So, with ID 0, and yeah, we don't have a user with 0 ID. So what about 1? And that's Alice. 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 Technically speaking, we are going to build a full-stack application with a Python backend and a JavaScript frontend. We'll create a simple microservice using Flask to serve up some data, and then build a basic web page that fetches and displays it. This is really the core of how modern web apps function, so let's break it down. Alright, let's start with the backend. This is essentially the engine of our application. It manages the logic and data. We are using Flask, which is a lightweight web framework for Python. It's ideal for projects like this, where you want to get up and running quickly without anything too complex. First, the imports. We bring in Flask to set up our web server, JSONify to handle data formatting, and CORS. Now, CORS is crucial here. It stands for Cross-Origin Resource Sharing, and it's like a security gatekeeper for your API. Browsers, by default, prevent the web page from requesting resources from a different domain or port to avoid potential risks. Since our frontend and backend will be on separate origins, enabling CORS tells the browser it's safe to allow those requests. Without it, our setup simply wouldn't function. I'll show you in a moment. Next, to keep this example straightforward, let's keep a real database and use a list as a mock user data. It's a practical way to simulate things without added overhead. Now onto the API endpoints. These are the specific URLs where our frontend can interact with the server. Our primary endpoint is users. We use Flask's app-row decorator to define that any GET request to users triggers the getUsers function. The function simply converts our user list to JSON via JSONify. JSON is the standard format for web data exchange, and it's precisely what the frontend anticipates. But what if we need a single user? We can use dynamic endpoint. The end user ID in the row captures an integer from the URL like users/1 and passes it to the function. We search for a matching ID, and if found, we return the JSON data. Otherwise, we send a 404 error with a user not found message. That's standard HTTP protocol for not found resources. Finally, the block at the end runs the server on port 5001 in debug mode, which is helpful for development as it provides detailed error feedback, but you shouldn't do that in production. Our backend is complete, a simple functional API. Now let's move to the front end and connect everything. This is what users actually see and interact with inside their browser. It's still built with a simple HTML, a touch of CSS for styling, and JavaScript to make things dynamic. The HTML structure has two main parts. First, the section with a heading, a button labeled Get Users, and an empty unordered list with the ID users list, where we'll display the full set of users. Right below that, I've added a second section for looking up a single user by ID. There's number input box, a button labeled Get User, and a div with the ID single user result to show the details or an error message. Inside the script tag, we define a constant that points to our Flask backend. Here's an important detail. If you are running the front end on the same machine as your Flask server, you can use localhost. But if you want to access it from another device on your local network, say your phone, as I did, or another computer, you'll need to use your machine's LAN IP address, something like 192.168.0.234 for me. That way, your browser knows exactly where to find the backend. So the getUsers function is wrapped in a try-catch block for error handling. Inside, we call fetch on users, wait for the response, parse it as JSON, then clear out the list and loop through the data, creating list items that display each user's ID, name, and email. We also have the getUserById function. It grabs the value from the input box, checks that it's valid, and then makes a request to user's ID. If the backend finds the user, we display their info in the result box. If not, we show the message user not found. Still handle it gracefully so nothing breaks. This is what happens when course is missing. You can see that the communication already doesn't work because it's actively blocked. So here's the full flow. If you click Get Users, the JavaScript calls the backend. Flask sends the JSON, and the page updates dynamically with a list of all users. Type an ID into the input box, hit Get User, and we fire off a second request to the backend. If the user exists, the details show up. If not, you'll see an error message instead. And this is the magic of connecting a Python backend with a JavaScript frontend. Two different layers, speaking two different languages, but working together to build a complete app. That would be all for today. Thanks for watching. If you like what you saw and want to see more in the future, hit the subscribe button. See you next time.